And we'll go ahead. So as you all know, welcome to MVP Office Hours for March 3rd. I am Squire Kirshner and joined with my two favorite co-hosts, Dale Ziegler and Joy Shelving. And welcome to everyone else. We are available on LinkedIn and Twitter, depending on who you're talking to, but you can always hit us up at either of those spots or with the @MVP Office Hours hashtag. We have an email, but as always, please use Success. It's your friend. It's a great way to communicate to us, to the rest of the team, to ask your questions when you're waiting for the 10 days until the next party on Zoom happens. So please do that. The ground rules are pretty simple. First of all, we're all here to help each other. There's no right or wrong answers. It's all about connecting and networking. Feel free to post your links, your resources, your answers in the chat. If you've got questions, put them there as well, or just raise your hand. We'll get to you in the order that they're received. And please share your screen if it helps. But remember, we're recording. You all heard it pop up when we started. So if it shouldn't be persist in the internets forever and ever and ever, then please don't share that information. And most importantly, we're all here to have fun, but and informally help each other, but keep it professional, because again, those recordings never go away. So, and we will be meeting again in 2 weeks on the 17th. Our schedule has been pretty consistent, knocking on wood. We haven't had to cancel in quite a while, so that's awesome. As far as events, you may have heard of it, but TDX is next week. I know there's at least 2 people going. Anybody else? Joy and I'll be there. Any other attendees? Okay. Well, it's going to be awesome. It won't be as awesome with the rest of you not there, but we'll do our best. Snowforce is happening right now. Kiwi Dreamin' and Dream Olay are coming up in March, and then the rest of them are kind of long term. And if you're not going to TDX, hopefully that means you've started your business case to go to Dreamforce in September. And if you need some help with that, Salesforce has lots of cool tools for that, and we can try to convince your bosses. I'd be more than happy to tell your boss that you should go. So. And jumping to the questions, there was one post since our last meeting from Mary Lynn asking about a case owner not being able to delete a file. I didn't see Mary Lynn join. I don't know if she's a regular attendee. But if you have some ideas, there's a pretty good conversation going on in the thread. And if you've got ideas about why someone might suddenly not be able to delete a file that's attached to a case that they own, jump out there to Success and add your commentary. That's all we had leading into this one. So if anybody's got questions, feel free to ask. I have one to kick off with if anybody doesn't have something. So, but mine's not that big of a deal.
I got something too, but it's not like, it's a more of a general like usage stuff.
Yeah.
You want to go first, Square?
Sure. I mean,
or do you want me to go first because you're really curious about what I got up my sleeve?
I am, and I want to give you as much time as possible to talk. So I think mine's a slam dunk, and it is that there doesn't appear to be a way to assign a formula value to a variable in a flow from a custom metadata record like you can in validation rules. You know, you can write a validation rule to say, look at this specific record and this specific value and compare it. We have a switchboard for all of our flows and our validation rules. And right now, the only way that I think we can do it is to query the metadata table and say, for every yes, which one are you talking about? Add it to a collection, iterate through, make decisions. It'd be great if you could just have a variable that says, is record X true or false? Is record Y true or false? TDX or in metadata. Does anybody know if there's a workaround for that other than using a get? Because it would be cool if you could just create a formula value. I don't think you can.
Sarah, you're muted. We can't hear your answer.
Sorry, I tuned out for a minute. Okay. What are we assigning with custom metadata?
Yeah, so the use case isn't super critical. Basically, we've got custom metadata records that are set to true or false.
Okay.
I'd like for a flow variable to use a formula to just look up a specific record's state.
Yeah.
You can in a validation rule, because I don't know why you shouldn't be able to do the same thing, but you can't, I don't think. So you have to do a get, right?
You do.
Stupid.
I use custom labels for that. true false if you can, because you can look up directly to custom labels.
Yeah, we were using settings as well, but we like the switchboard feel of the metadata table, so I think we're gonna have to still just do a get, but I didn't want to.
Yep.
So,
No,
and the
Currently have
reason,
to, but maybe someday.
yes, I mean, the reason we want to do that, or I'd like to do that, is because when you do that get, it's not really very descriptive about what's happening. So if you could create a formula and say, is switch 1 on, yes or no? Then if you use that in a decision point, you know exactly what you're talking about. You're not saying is A or B or C or D true. You can just say, is switch 1 on or off? Is switch 2 on or off? It's just really easy to debug, especially in the cases that I'm talking about. We have like dozens of these switches that we're leveraging, and we want to make sure we can read it better. But whatever, I'm done. Stop complaining, Squire.
Sarah, what do you have with your Experience Cloud stuff?
So this is again dealing with the password reset for external users is not the best experience sometimes for them. And part of that, I think, is user error in that you have to put in your username, not your email address, to get the password reset email. So I've been tasked to fix this problem this year. And one of the things I was looking into is, can you access that lightning component that is the password reset lightning component to maybe update it, but it looks like maybe you can't. And then I was wondering about using a flow to reset external users' passwords. And if anybody had done that, is that a possibility? Does anybody know?
Possible.
Someone really
Absolutely.
smart did that I am adjacent to, but I don't
Yeah.
know how to get it.
Or a custom component would be the other way to go, I assume.
Because we have them looking up their email address, not their username.
Single sign-on might be an option. We haven't really gone down that route at all for anybody, but I could certainly look into it to allow external users to like log on with their Gmail address. Is that the idea? I assume.
Anything single sign-on, MFA, anything like that with external users, like at IBM and specifically formerly 7 Summits, where like Experience Cloud was our bread and butter. We saw a massive uptick in MFA. So like Okta's probably one of the top ones up there. It threw out the whole community reset experience. I would say, yes, you could build like a screen flow or something to replace it, but you just got to be aware of the gotchas and the hooks that out of the box community comes with. And also bear in mind with SSO and MFA, when you're extending it to external users, that, I mean, you're bringing them even more into your network, even if you're parking them off like onto the sunroom in the back of the house kind of thing. Like, it just brings that many more considerations. But once you consider all the things, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, our external users tend to be less tech savvy. Hence the putting in the wrong value and never getting an email. If they just put in their username, it would work. But well, basically I was like, would it be possible to reset it so that instead of putting in your username, you put in like your name and email or something, and it could look up your user that way? I don't know.
So if I'm not mistaken, usernames can be edited. What is the why behind an external user's username not being one-to-one with their email address?
Well, a lot of them are. Some of them aren't, because we let users self-register, which is another problem, but in and of itself. And in a lot of cases they are, so that's probably where it works. It could be something else going wrong and they're just not getting the password reset emails for some unknown reason. Maybe they're putting in the correct information and they're not. I don't know how I would start to trace that, but
yeah.
I do know that users report, hey, I tried to reset my password and I never got the email. And then when we reset it from the back end, it does work. So it's something about that component on Experience Cloud that's not going so good.
And I think that does have something to do with self-registration versus a fully licensed Salesforce user internally creating that user record.
Yeah.
I would definitely, before you go into a custom component or any kind of customization or even MFA, SSO, whatever, is first explore what is the actual size of the population where username and email address don't match, and would it be worth just getting those synced up? Because obviously we all want to use out of the box as much as possible,
Yeah.
but that's a hard limitation that you have to put in this specific value. So if you can true the data up to do that, then that might be your win. I would also look into why self-reg versus submitting a request for access, because that might be why your users aren't getting that password reset email.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
if you
there's some-
exhaust those and that still doesn't solve the problem, then yeah, I mean, you can ScreenFlow, you can like, Sarah, I'd put you at the top of my list of ways to fix that with declarative automation, because
Yeah.
it would absolutely work. You just don't want to have to.
Yeah, I've been avoiding it, and I finally got the like, no, you have to fix this now, make it
Gotcha.
work somehow. So, okay.
Really
Thanks for
quick,
the
I
ideas.
do know you have customization options to those pages.
Yeah.
And I think the risk is that if you're using, if you're basically tricking it to do an update with a flow with a different authentication, you could actually open it up to like denial of service and hacking.
Yeah.
But I do know you have a lot of feature functionality within like the configuration of that page, even to say have the page validate some stuff before it closes. The link I just dropped, I'm sure you've read it, has to do with customizing your external login page, and there's a bunch of other stuff there too. I would poke around there because I think you can get there without putting yourself at risk.
Okay, great. Thanks for all the advice.
Fun stuff. Let's see. John, do you want to jump in and take yourself off mute and tell us what you're working on conveying? Because I can talk about data classification anytime. It's not a project I'm like currently involved in. John, you're muted. One more time. It's all right. There we go.
Okay, sorry. I think I unmuted it and then muted it again right away. So real quick on the issue that we had last week or last session regarding applications loading to production, but running the test classes and causing an error. It definitely was related somehow with the link Lightning Sync, because we turned, that's the admin made a configuration change so that wasn't two directional, and now it's only one directional, I guess. And I'm not having that error anymore. So
That's great.
Still kind of weird that Salesforce would allow me to run the tests moving a change set from full to production, not hit the error, and then running the test individually and getting the error. So, but
Did you happen to open a ticket? I know we suggested maybe getting some help from the support desk. Did you do that?
no, because I can't really replicate the error now.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
But I mean, I could, but I would need the admins to set it back.
Right.
They don't really want to do that. So,
It might be worth, even if you can't replicate it, it might be worth opening it just to be able to see if they have a knowledge article tied to it that you could like keep an eye on as times change.
so I did. I can find that after I'm done talking, but
Okay.
I did find one that said, yeah, that's the case, but it didn't say why or anything related to that. They just said, yeah, this does happen.
they just confirmed that, like, you're right, moving on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
So, yeah. But this question is regarding so we have a custom object, has a, and it's an existing one, so I didn't do this. It has 2 triggers / classes assigned to them. And one is regarding submitting a approval process. So a 3-step approval process. And once that approval is done, it's basically an exception. So it allows somebody to say, okay, you didn't meet these metrics, but we're going to approve it. And so now you're, gold for this metric. And that goes through the approval process. The class triggers it, sets it. And there's another field that counts how many golds you have. And that's by another trigger within that class. And that one's not firing. So if we set the one through the submitting the approval process, it hits 5, say the number is 5 you need to have, and it hits that 5th one, it's not firing off the other trigger to set the overall rank. Did I explain that?
I think we're gonna have some more questions, but it's on, so there's lots of questions, obviously. This is probably a pretty good one. So as soon as you set approval process, that's its own problem, because it's like that happens differently in the order of execution. So there could be a situation where the commit that would normally trigger the trigger is not meeting the requirements, but then gets the approval process update, and then that change is past the triggering opportunity. So like, are you familiar with how the order of execution diagram looks?
Yeah, but I don't have it memorized or anything.
What?
But
Come on, there's like 65 nodes. It should take you only an hour or 2 to get. No, I'm kidding. But it's very likely that without, we really want to be able to see this to answer your question. But the first thing I would do is I would sit down with that order of execution. Dale's got it up right now. There's a really slick graphical representation of it on the well-architected site. Between those two, you might be able to see right away why something is happening if you walk through the timeline. The other piece of it, there could be a situation where, well, let's see here. So does your approval process does make a record update to the record, or is it does? And that's what should be then firing the second trigger.
So it updates one field and it's not triggering another. I'm guessing that your order of sequence is the issue. It may also be, so somebody told me that the actual best practice is to only have one class per object.
One trigger per
One
object.
trigger.
Oh, so it's not one class, just one trigger. Okay.
Yeah, because the trigger is the event that then says do something. The class doesn't do anything until the trigger tells it to act.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you've got 2, starting guns, basically, they can fight with each other or work against each other. Yep. Create recursive changes. There's all kinds of things there. So,
So I guess one question in the middle, Squire, why are approval processes not included in the order of execution?
Well,
and
it's
is that
actually
causing part of this problem?
Potentially, because it's I'm trying to find it myself, because it's not even the approval process itself. It's approval process updates and like things that fire the order of execution. I'm trying to remember where that is. I'm looking at the other picture.
Because like the way way my mind works when I try to break this down is, okay, an approval process is a user does something to say yay or nay, and you set all those downstream, update a field, reset the approval process, trigger an email or whatever, any of those things. The fact that approval process isn't even referenced in the document is what makes me wonder, where are the holes in the Swiss cheese in this process?
Yeah.
Like, is there something special about an approval process versus just those actions that are set to happen? Do they fall in here? It's the lack of explicitly mentioning approval process that would have me concerned.
Yeah, and I think if I'm trying to remember back, approval process itself isn't the issue. It's the changes that are generated either because something is kicking off an approval process or responding to a closed approval process. And I think it's now bucketed into like, I'm trying to remember if it's bucketed in escalation or if it's bucketed into like workflow or something, because it's not really approval process that's the problem. It's just that it's tangential, and I want to dig through that. The link I put in the chat is the picture version. The link that Dale has up is way more descriptive. So between the two, we should be able to sync up on it, but we might not be able to get you there right now.
It's okay.
But what I would also offer is let's assume that it's none of those things for just a second. I would sit down and do a quick like event map of like, I've got my record, field X changes, what happens, right? And it's like, well, it should fire a trigger and it should create the approval process and it should do this thing, and then follow those paths, because sometimes it's as simple as, oh, I think A happens after B, but A is happening way before B, so it doesn't actually trigger again. Or, you know, maybe one of the triggers is an after or before trigger, and so it doesn't care anymore about the change. You really want to map out what you think is happening, and then verify that it's written to do that before we even try to figure out if it's failing, because maybe it's doing what it's supposed to.
And that was going to be my other question is, are we talking before or after? Are we talking insert, update, delete, create? Like when are the triggers actually written to happen? Because is that correct?
What is the misfiring trigger actually doing? Is it just summing up a count of records?
So it's yeah, so it's counting the number of, in this case, the sample that I said, how many golds are there? And if so, if they hit 5 out of 10 golds, then the overall ranking gets set to gold.
And a roll-up of some sort is not going to accomplish this with like a formula field? Like, does this need to be done through a trigger and a class?
I don't know that it would a formula field, because we're updating a bunch of the different metrics at once, so it wouldn't look at the formula field, right? The trigger is based on when I save it, then it does the counts for all the, because then it knows that you're done doing all the different metrics.
And the count is all on the same object.
Yes.
Like, okay, got it.
Yep.
So it's like a little scorecard object or something. If they hit enough metrics,
yep,
it marks it as gold. And then what? Further up the object ladder, you're reporting a total number of golds for that person.
So yes, so they would have 10 different metrics, and each one of those is determined. If you hit 80%, then it's gold, and those are all set through the one class.
I still think you.
I'm sorry,
through formula field, couldn't you, to look at if those
all those all those individuals are set through the formula class or formulas, and then the overall is done off a trigger.
So actually, that makes me wonder: are you trying to So formulas don't actually commit. They're a runtime display. So if you've got a formula that's saying, well, now I'm worth 5, that won't cause a trigger to fire. It's only on database commits that triggers occur. Am I making sense there? So like if you have a field A and field B, and you say 1 plus A plus B equals 5, now do something. If that field is just a formula that adds A and B, that will never trigger. Because it actually isn't a commit. It's a runtime value. So like so in theory, what it does is it only gives you values if you're supposed to see values, right? It doesn't trigger things. Are you saying that this is a formula? Or you're saying this is a update from a class?
The overall ranking is an update from a class. The individual one is a formula.
But is that change one of the, like, are you expecting that change in that formula to now trigger something?
Yeah.
It's not going to. So that's probably why you're not getting the outcome, because it doesn't, and you're not making a new commit just because the formula adds up to something different. Think about it differently. Like if you had a formula that says days to complete today minus date X, it would have to calculate itself continuously, infinitely, to know what that value is. Right? It doesn't do that. Formulas calculate on render, on evaluation, on export, on whatever. You're not going to get that trigger to happen.
Could you use a roll-up field of some sort to calculate that versus a formula field?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with roll-up fields. Sorry.
That one might actually, if it's not a master detail relationship, but if you could use a roll-up helper or a declarative lookup roll-up summary tool to do the roll-ups, and then that would actually update a value on that record, which could then be your trigger.
Okay.
And
Or if you've already got classes, let's go farther with Barb's idea, just have it update that value as well on the commit, and now you can have it do the second step.
Because it would
before
commit.
I take this back down, I did want to call out too, this was the thing that I was referencing a second ago. So updates from an approval process don't re-trigger rules. That's why it's not in the order of execution, because it actually doesn't do anything at all.
gotcha.
So
Great. Thank you for some directions, and I'll look into that.
We had a hand up for Aaron.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much. Let me just, oh, wait, hold on. I can't see myself. Okay. I have a question. I hope it makes sense. It's Friday. It's been a very long week, so just bear with me. Okay. We have CPQ, right? CPQ feeds into Chargeify, which is subscription and billing software, which then feeds into QuickBook. And then QuickBook talks to our back end, right? We have a pretty benign process as far as business model, right? And we also have DocuSign. So I'm new to the company. I have no idea why they purchased CPQ, but they did. You know, we get into these frenzies where we're buying every cloud. So our biggest struggle and the most complex business model that we have is actually subscriptions and invoices. So what I would like to do is pull out CPQ, do the bundling, either, I don't know if we could do it flows or custom object, or we could just do it natively, and then actually spend the money instead of CPQ on, which I like, is the subscriptions and invoice of Salesforce or something better. Chargeify, I don't know if anybody's used Chargeify, it's horrible. So please don't record that, but I have to tell you, I'm sure. Hit that stop recording button before I get a lawsuit, but I am telling you, I'm waiting for the day to rip this out. So I think CPQ, the way I see it, it's really putting in a thumbtack with a sledgehammer. And we need the sledgehammer on the subscriptions and billing, because that's really complex. So has anybody, I mean, I've actually uninstalled the Health Cloud and built it out, you know, with custom objects and whatever. Our team did. So has anybody ever decommissioned CPQ or think that CPQ, as far as bundling, and the redlining will come from DocuSign, but as far as the proposal and contract, does anybody think it could be done natively instead of CPQ? Are
As
we
long as you
quiet
don't
because I
ask us
made
to
no
build
sense
it,
whatsoever?
yes.
Did I make?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Oh,
Very
yes.
loaded question.
Like I said, it's been a long week. It's been a long
Yeah.
week.
Right. I mean, I think that the prime first
Stuart.
answer is how much do you want to maintain it if you
Yeah.
replace it with something a little bit more custom built?
And how complex is your process?
Right.
The opportunity business model to close, it's not. It's very easy. It's a very benign business model. But then, like I said, our process as far as subscriptions and invoicing and whatever, that would be, I don't know if anybody's ever used the Salesforce billing and the billing and invoice. It's great. It really is. There's a couple of them. I'm actually doing an evaluation, but it really all we need for our business model, because we close a deal quickly, right? We have a product, we sell subscriptions, we demo. Right after the demo, are you buying it or you're not buying it? That's really it. And it can go from demo to proposal sent to contract sent to close. That's really it. So I'm more concerned about the bundling. Does Salesforce natively bundle with the products, or is that why CPQ was invented?
Yeah, this
Mm,
another
no,
loaded
that
question.
is a good question. Like I've seen some really smart MVP women give demonstrations at Dreamforce and other community events. A made your own CPQ. Like I'm pretty sure my brain is gone today.
Like a
but,
CPQ light, if you will.
yeah, I think
homemade.
I saw Monica Sandberg and perhaps Michelle Hansen deliver
Michelle
what
Hansen can do anything.
yeah,
I mean, that's
I think I
Multiple-
saw them at Dreamforce build out of flow and custom objects. Here's how you could do a light CPQ sort of thing with billing inside of Salesforce. And again, it's recorded, so maybe I'm totally wrong, but I'm sure I've seen that sort of thing at Dreamforce by some really powerful women trailblazer in the community. But the question becomes, at what point in time are you rebuilding the CPQ wheel? I don't know that answer, but there is an edge of that chasm that you will step your foot over and say, does this make sense? Because yeah, it becomes a maintenance nightmare. And I've had this conversation with Bill Powell, who is a CPQ guru, of when do you customize and when do you buy? And it is not an easy question, and it depends on your company. It depends on how comfortable you are with customization.
I agree.
Also the legacy, the legacy you create, right? Like you walked into this and you're like, this big monster of a chain, daisy chain of things, taking out CPQ is then going to leave your customized CPQ replacement in its place, and then you have the maintenance that Stuart's talking about.
True. Yeah, I worked with CPQ. I mean, when I worked with FactSet, we had 30 or 50,000 users, and we had code zero come in, and it took a year, and and we got the billing and the invoices, and it was a whole thing. And so I'm familiar with CPQ, but that kind of warranted it, right? They really needed it. But this is we've got less than, 50 users or something. And they're paying for CPQ. Like I said, it's a benign, but you're right. What void am I going to leave? But the only thing I can see is that we're really only using the CPQ quote.
Are you 100% sure of that? That's the only thing
It's
that I would
Friday.
ever think of
Let
is
me get back to you on Monday.
because there's always that one
You're
that one
absolutely
tree
right.
root that gets stuck in the ground that turns out like went through a water pipe, and when you pull it out, you create a big mess that you just have to be absolutely positively sure of. Because just because you only have 50 users doesn't mean it's not generating thousands upon thousands of very valuable records of data or
Mhm.
other functions. So that'd be my only other question.
No, you're right, Dale, because that's what happened when we, last company, we built it, we implemented Health Cloud, and then we realized we were paying a lot of money. We only use 4 objects. So, and the timeline never works. What that timeline that comes with it, it's always on, known issue. So we uninstalled it, but then we found a void. So it's not easy. It's not easy. So this brings me to my next question. Since COVID, I have heard, rumor has it, that there are a lot of developers that have gone freelance, and they will contract for ad hoc projects, right? So it's not like the big, long project, that it's basically little small SOWs. Is that true? Because it was actually my former Salesforce account executive said that, and I was just curious if that's true.
I think it's
So
probably definitely something that's happening. And,
Yeah,
and
because
I
of
think COVID probably gave that some more traction.
it,
Yeah.
Are you
definitely-
looking for freelance developers?
I am. That's
so
I was gonna say, are you
Yes,
looking to get a
freelance.
freelance developer to do this work for you if you bring it in-house?
no, I've
Okay.
got a lot of
All right.
evaluating to do.
Because I was gonna
Right
say,
now.
that might not work.
Not for the CPQ. I have a lot of other, like I said, I'm new to this company. I'm not even there 5 months, and there's a lot of code that I need peppered in through these business models to just enhance the automation. And I know it needs code. Nothing else is going to do it. So, that's why I was curious.
so like the whole freelance thing, that was, I would agree with Joy that COVID gave it more traction. It was already a thing. My first consulting company actually started life as a talent placement agency, and they were still doing that, putting contract workers everywhere. And then, oh, hey, by the way, we also do Salesforce engagements. If you're looking for someone like that to help with this, I would also go a little out of the box and look for someone who identifies as like a technical architect,
Mhm.
because they will have already done the code in their life. They also will have maximized the ever-loving you-know-what out of declarative automation.
Yeah.
Don't just go for a developer to do it. And potentially bring them in-house, because CPQ got in there for a reason. Whether it was the right reason or not, there was some kind of complexity that needed to be solved for that. I'm going to guess there may be other complexities as well to assist. And that's not to take away your role as an admin or architect or wherever you have, but to at least help with that programmatic side.
Mhm.
I would say
No, I
look for a
agree with
TA.
you. I just need somebody to come in and do a number of ad hoc jobs, just so I'll have the time to evaluate this whole CPQ replacement and then also Chargify replacement. But Joy's right. I mean, COVID really was the catalyst for this.
Yeah,
For
I
obvious
think it
reasons.
exposed it a lot, and I think a lot of people found they had time on their hands, and so they may have expanded their full-time plus dabble on the side hustle kind of situation, because they had the time all of a sudden. And there's a lot of reputable companies and people that can help you find those. I don't have anyone to recommend off the top of my head. I'm not going to endorse anyone here, but
Yeah.
there's a lot out there. Just please vet them carefully.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, it's funny. I'm based in New York City, but none of the user groups have kind of reactivated, right? We used to always meet on a regular basis, whether they're in tech or.
Is there developer user groups like meeting virtually or anything?
probably virtually, but I mean, I work right around the corner from Bryant Park. I mean, we used to go to Salesforce and go to the user groups there, but I'm not getting any emails unless I was voted off the island, but I'm not
Well, I
getting.
mean, there was a lot of changeover in those groups, so they might still be virtual and might have started a new one up, or people might have changed. So if you haven't poked around Bevy lately to make sure that there isn't the new one locally, I don't.
As a user group leader who is now a former user group leader, because the demand to go back in person, I've burned out. And I'm gonna guess, especially in bigger metros, burnout is very real. I would apply that to, if you find a freelance developer, vet them to make sure they're not on the verge of getting burned out. But I mean, any of this, like,
I know.
I just had a conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago, new to Kansas City, that was like, well, why don't we have all these meetups? Dude, do you know how much work goes into putting these together? Like, we don't get paid
Yeah.
for this. And by the way, we love our jobs that do pay us. We love our families. That shouldn't require any further, qualification around it. So it's like, yeah.
Squire, you're so salty.
Yeah. I would say sounds like
Hey,
Aaron
Dale,
wants to start a new group.
Dale, can you grab the link? I can do it. I'm not completely ridiculous. The community link. Oh my gosh, where is it? Join a Trailblazer group. That's the one I wanted to grab. The Aaron, there are other developer groups that are meeting though. So if you want to connect with people that are maybe not New York City, but maybe are like East Coast, then you can definitely find some
Yeah, I'll go
things
on.
going
I mean,
Well, I'll give you one more nugget of advice, since I live in one of the most affordable cost of living places in the country. Look in the Midwest.
I know.
and as a Chicago admin or Trailblazer community group leader, the in-person meetings are challenging. Because we will set up for a meeting and then we will have 10 people show up. And there is way too much at stake when it comes to like security and the health restrictions that have been happening in the last 6 months, especially.
Yeah, I can only imagine what you guys have been going through.
Like the last in-person meeting we held, we had more Salesforce employees and community group leaders than we did participants. So that was wildly unexpected, but of the 25 people, it was more employees and community group leaders than anything else. So anyway.
All right, thanks. No, great advice.
Yeah, we'd love to
Great
get back to
advice.
in person, but it's a road. It's a road because of all of just the weirdness going on.
Yeah, but to Dale's point, it's like a part-time job that you're not getting paid for. And
We get benefits on the back end of it, but it's not directly feeding into sustaining our day-to-day livelihoods. And
No one's making me coffee for that. Geez.
right.
So are we all set? Aaron, are we wrapped up with you?
I'm done. I've
Okay.
taken up enough time. Thank you, guys.
I didn't mean to just
Thank
like
you, Aaron.
quick segue. I just kind of felt like
Right.
I have a question. Anybody here, anybody out there doing data classification actually? Not just like, ooh, that's a cool little thing, and they're like tripping over that drop. Stuart, would you unmute, please? You can't have an opinion and then not unmute. Stuart.
I've done it. I've done it with the company that was acquired by Home Backup. I think it was called RevCult or something, and they had an app that they installed because I was formerly healthcare.
What are you talking about? Data classification? Tell me. Give me a scenario.
Are you
Like
talking about-
the little droppy down menu, like
When
the
you're creating a
confidential.
Like on a field.
The new functionality or
That one.
extended functionality Salesforce has just put out.
Mhm. Do I have a sandbox open?
No.
I don't know that
Show-
it's all that new. I think they've just extended it recently, right?
Show me.
Like
The
Oh,
template
classifying
that would
something
have,
as
like,
personal.
Deprecate
personal
candidate
information.
and stuff as an option.
Got a +1 for mark for deprecation in the chat. Like, I guess, what is it supposed to do? That's always been my question is.
With
What's the-
healthcare, I had to do this to get the high trust certification.
Okay,
So we hired somebody doing it natively. You can't really get to the audit fields. It's very limited natively. So that's why we hired a company, which was very expensive. And we installed their package. And it's also a friendlier UI. And in healthcare, you need to do this to get certifications. Security certifications.
so, but what that, so in between that, 'cause like that makes sense, but what is it actually doing in the middle and day to day? If something
thank
is
goodness.
classified as like HIPAA, what is it actually doing on the platform?
I think you can just use it to set access. Right?
We didn't use it to set a access was always by profile. Honestly,
No.
I think it was a
You're-
bell and whistle that Salesforce
Yes.
sold.
Absolutely.
That just, it's like, yes, look at us, you know.
So-
Is this
so, like,
being
it's not gonna
recorded? Is this
encrypt
being
or
recorded?
anything?
We
Yeah.
really have to start hitting that. stop
Yes,
hitting that
Start-
Spirit,
stuff.
it is
start
being
hitting-
recorded.
hitting the unrecord button would be fine here. But the problem I see is that I think, again, I'm totally wrong here. I think that when you get into the industry stuff and get into the financial services industries, get into the healthcare industries, you actually get a data model along with that. Like if we were to buy FSC, you get a financial services cloud
Mhm.
data model that goes with that.
Right,
And part of that data model is the security, financial services security metadata that goes along with it. So you can indicate if this particular set of data is FINRA compliant. So I would use that over this. I wouldn't say that it is GDPR compliant. I would say, well, it's FINRA compliant. It goes with the government's. So I already don't use it in healthcare. If you're bought the healthcare industry package, you have a new healthcare data model, which has its own security layer. So I don't know what this is, what compliance it's
So
doing for
let's-
you.
It's the only way to get any sort of detail about the data field itself other than a description. So when you do like a SOC compliance or a HIPAA compliance, you can report out and say, this field represents this type of data in this way. It's basically, it's just labeling. It doesn't do anything else.
So to like the average Sales Cloud, Service Cloud implementation, no FinServ, no Health Cloud, like just Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, that's it. This really doesn't mean anything. It's just another pick list to have to tab through as you're setting up a field.
You know, I think some people could use it for GDPR if they wanted to.
again,
So that's
but-
not like financial or health related, but
Right, but you have to know exactly what like all of these are to say that this is with.
But I guess I'm still struggling with if that field is set as GDPR. I mean, that is a great example. That's pretty globally applicable. Does it trigger anything on the platform, on an event, anything like that?
Well, could you use it to like in a flow or a trigger or whatever to be like, okay, we're deleting this user, delete everything that's in their GDPR marked fields.
Well, but it's you're leveraging
don't know.
metadata then
can-
at that point.
Yeah, you
Right.
can only access it through the tooling API as far as I understand.
Uh,
Oh, I'm so excited that this is what I have in my future. Ooh.
I mean, so, okay, so more like, I wish this wasn't recorded, but let's just, holistically speaking, when you talk about SOC compliance or ISO or whatever, it's just about pieces of paper. It never was very functional. It's just a matter of doing the work to say you did the work. And that's all this is too, as far as I'm aware, is you can just say, a field I just created is GDPR, like aligned with GDPR regulations, or it's a PII field from our considerations. And now you can say, yes, we documented all of our PII fields in our instance. Give us that ISO accreditation. That's all it does. You could extend it but it's really just about having tags about fields in your data.
So, okay.
What
How's
was
it any
that deal?
different than it's so like, how's it any different than a doctor going rogue with a patient's file and saying, look, it's in a file folder. It has those colored sticky letters on it. See, it's behind a folder. And then here you go, public, have it. Like, how's that any different than this?
Yeah, I don't get it, because you could have a conversation and then I could see someone in compliance coming in and saying, take all the GDPR fields and put them into Shield and encrypt them in Shield. And I would say, you are out of your mind crazy. Do not do that, because I don't even know that those fields are compatible with Shield. And how much work would we have to do on the developer end to change all the formulas and the workflow and everything to make sure it works? And do you know how much that's going to affect our performance and cache and everything?
Well, and
No,
isn't GDPR
no, thank
the
you.
destruction of data, not what's in what fields? Like GDPR being the consumer's right to request that their information be no longer made available at all by anyone.
Yeah, but there is one of the articles, GDR has 99 articles, and there's one of them that says that end users should only see your information if they need to see it. And again, we're coming back to profiles. So, but there's a number of articles with GDPR as far as who has access to it. But you're right about Sutra. It really is just a box that you check when you're going for a certification that this is what you did.
And I do want to say, even though I typed it, you can query the field def values. You don't have to use the tooling API. I don't think you can write a flow against field def, but I know you could query it in a class if you wanted to do something.
Maybe. I mean, if
There's
you
a
can query it,
SOCL
query it, you can
Apex
yeah,
section,
you can put it inside of a flow. Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
good.
Sure. So
but I don't know if it's the most efficient way to do that, but you could.
no.
Something
Is
to
it
think
usable
about.
to provide sharing access?
Oh, I don't want
No,
to talk about
because-
sharing access right now. I also don't want to talk about field access or permission sets and profiles and all.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on mute.
I'm like, I don't want to talk about any of that right now. You guys, I have to go back and fight with my VS Code. So, but we are just about at 2:00. So thank you, right? Everyone, any other like last minute questions? Anyone?
Big
What,
shout
Squire?
big shouts to new attendees, Healy and Isaac. I don't think I've seen
Yeah.
you. Welcome, Yumiko. I don't know if we spoke with Yumiko. Kim, I don't recognize. I mean, it's awesome to have
Lots
some
of new
attendees, so,
faces.
yeah.
I love it. I love
Paul,
yeah,
it.
hi.
I think you might be a
I
new
just
one too,
learned.
right? Yeah.
I just learned about these, so glad to be here. I just like soaking everything.
You
a
mean
sponge.
about us? About our party every other Friday?
Yeah, I don't know how I missed it.
Well, I don't know.
I'll
It's
save
all-
my experience cloud sharing sets question for next time.
No, don't save it. Put it in the community group.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. I'll
What
do
I'm
that.
very serious,
We'll get
because
ahead of
what that does is it helps us marinate on the situation before we get to this, like, ad lib kind of nonsense.
Well, and also, and not only let us marinate on it, but what is our head count on that group?
I don't know, like 12,000 or something ridiculous. No, I don't know.
11 billion.
Many.
1,766. That's 1,766 people who potentially could answer that question.
It's more than the 25 of us here. So yeah, plop it in there and get some initial feedback. And if you need more clarity, we can always like riff off that too. So don't wait. Don't wait. And the next time we see everybody, it's going to be St. Patrick's Day. So all that good stuff.
And I will bring some questions because I have 2 questions. I'll bring them.
Nice.
It's gonna be awesome.
Stu, are you traveling to San Francisco next week? We didn't ask.
Absolutely not.
that's right.
I'm committed to stay home
I
with my
understand.
family. Yep.
I understand. We'll miss you.
I'll miss you.
Can I ask a real last minute question?
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Aloha.
Aloha.
Hi. I just do people ever start a group in the same like city/community, even if it's a small community?
Generally speaking, what will happen if you apply to create a group where another group is very close, and Salesforce metrics thinks that like it might interfere, the folks that are running the first group will be notified and asked about the creation of the second group.